Until World released last year with Boost Cinema, in modern Mario Kart there have only been 2 new ghostish themed tracks, and as a result, I often hear them brought up in direct comparison with one another. The general consensus is that Luigi's Mansion DS far outperforms Twisted Mansion from 8. But is that really the case? I'm Joel, and I often trip on power cables. First up, the theming of Mario Kart 8's Twisted Mansion is underwhelming at best. Though looking visually gorgeous, it fails to capture the ghostly vibes that it's going for, which were captured so well in the old Ghost Valleys, Banshee Boardwalk, Boost Cinema, and of course, Luigi's Mansion. The track feels too goofy, for lack of a better word, which is expected in a Mario Kart track, but only so much is necessary for a track like this. Another contributing factor is how well lit it is. Mood lighting does complement this theme, but Twisted Mansion goes overboard with it, to the point that even the outside section is fairly well lit. On the other hand, Luigi's Mansion is brilliantly themed. It has an almost perfect mix of eerie darkness and the good old Mario charm. Sure, its visuals are dated, but that can easily be ignored, and is much more a hardware limitation issue than the problem with the track itself. The mansion is crooked and eerie looking, even on the inside, and the fog outside really adds to the atmosphere, making for a superbly themed track. So that's it. Luigi's Mansion is better, end of story. I've been Joel, but you can call me the Power Tripper. Now that the overzealous DS fans have left happy, let's talk about the rest of the track. Luigi's Mansion layout is sinfully underbaked and boring. The opening run up to the mansion is neat, giving a good overview of the prior mentioned delightfully crooked and eerie namesake of the track. Then you enter the mansion, and it's similarly entertaining, just a loop round and split path around a table. Nothing crazy as expected for the Mushroom Cup, but it's pretty good. But then you leave the mansion and realise you've got about 40-ish seconds, 75%-ish, of the track left to go, and wonder what could possibly be more interesting than navigating the inside of Luigi's Mansion. And the game doesn't answer this. What it does answer is the question of what is infinitely more basic and boring than the inside of the mansion, and how can we make it worse? Upon exiting the mansion, you enter a snaking path section with few to no obstacles on the track itself, and a potential simple off-road cut. The 7 remake improves this section with a glider cut and hole in the garden walls, allowing for a couple more interesting routes, but still nothing worth calling your grandma about. The mud section is my least favourite part of the track though. In what world did this already boring track need a slow section? It's not like the scenery in this section is particularly different from its immediate predecessor. At the very least, it's not appallingly slow, and there are fairly large patches of normal ground. But the one real saving grace for this section are the trees that waddle side to side on the platforms, which act as good hazards that aren't too punishing, but punishing enough that it may not be worth taking the faster areas without mud, if they look like the trees might get in your way. No part of the track is entirely without merit though. In fact, overall I wouldn't say the layout is anywhere below the 5 out of 10, but in Mario Kart, just okay is not enough to stand out as a great track in my opinion. And I personally don't think this track has even close to earned its reputation as one of the best tracks in DS. Twisted Mansion, however, has a slightly less generic layout from my point of view. It opens outside similarly to Luigi's Mansion, but then you drive into the entrance hall. Here there's a neat use of anti-gravity as you drive on the walls of the dining hall, making for some interesting trick-based gameplay as you time your tricks on the wavy moving walls for maximum speed. It also provides a short but cool looking visual set piece. Then, there's a wide turn through a library, which is easily the best area in terms of visuals and theme usage. There's a simple corner shroom cut, which, while basic, is pretty satisfying to take. Then you enter the most controversial section of the track, the sewers. Most people claim that this section is boring, with little to do, and while I agree to an extent, I think it provides a neat bit of gameplay and visual variation to the track, and helps Twisted Mansion escape the same pitfall Luigi's Mansion does. It's a short section with a few simple turns, but the slight driving difference from underwater and the anti-grav posts make it a worthwhile, if inoffensive, part of the track. On a visual level, this section is also pretty cool, with fishbones swimming above or below you depending on which path you take, as well as being able to see the racers on the other path. Then, there's a short glider section with another split path, which requires gliding up a bit to reach the upper path, which, while very easy here, is pretty good conceptually, and paved the way for much better implementation of this gimmick in future tracks like Ninja Hideaway. Then after driving through a crooked outbuilding, you come to the final outdoor stretch, with some Hammonites, which are solid hazards, one of which provides solid risk-reward as it blocks the fastest possible line. Music-wise, both absolutely nail their vibes, but neither particularly stand out on their own. The organ in Luigi's Mansion DS perfectly matches the darker tone of the track, but it takes a lot from the original Luigi's Mansion theme, and as a remix, does very little to improve on the original. So at that point, when listening to the soundtracks outside of Mario Kart, just listen to the original Luigi's Mansion theme. Twisted Mansion's music is a perfect mix of slightly creepy but mostly cartoonish, excellently recreating the track's tone in music form. But its melody doesn't stand out nearly as much as the majority of the rest of 8's phenomenal soundtrack. So when you want to listen to some Mario Kart 8 music, it's not going to be anywhere close to the top of your list. Both pieces work well in the context of their tracks, but do little to differentiate themselves beyond that. So overall, as controversial as it may be, I personally think Twisted Mansion is a much better track than Luigi's Mansion, despite not being anything too special on its own. As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and for the second time this video, I've been Joel, but you can call me the Power Tripper.